Wildlife's something that I think everybody values. It's something that God created. It's the beauty. As a steward of it, we kind of do our business to make sure we always have that.
Wildlife matters to me. It has mattered, I don't know, as long as I can remember. I liked hunting, got to hunt as an early age, was always concerned about wildlife, always concerned about fish, always concerned about leaving this place better than we got here.
My name is Tom Fulton. I've lived at Toad River for 53 years now. We founded Northeast BC Wildlife after having 2 fundraisers for the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation, and we couldn't get much money back from them. They went south. So we decided to have our own organization where all the money went back onto the mountain. And, we founded that in 1993. I was one of the original directors and president of the organization for 12 years.
Greg Wilson. I've been involved with Northeast BC Wildlife Foundation since they started. I've been just a member, lifetime member of it so far, I guess, and just really appreciate what they do for the habitat and wildlife and everything that's out there for everybody that loves to go to the backcountry.
My name's Cameron Allen, and I'm the co-owner of Quest Helicopters Inc. in Fort Nelson, BC. My history goes back to the beginning of the Northeast BC Wildlife Fund. I was part of the initial group that got together to get the Northeast BC Wildlife Fund off the ground. This is the 30th year of the Northeast BC Wildlife Fund. I hope there's another 30 years and more than that. We just need to be a little more active with our fundraisers and the advocacy of moving forward and getting that money back out on the land.
Through the years, some of our past projects that are really significant is every year we do off-highway salting for the stone sheep, because a lot of them were getting hit on the highway, had high mortality rates. And so every other year we do a helicopter salting project that we put salt back up in locations where predators can't get to. So that's been real successful. And some of our other projects is every year we put up a $20,000 fund for prescribed burns, and we've been working on that every year until 2015. They kind of shut that down, and looks like we might get that back on the go now.
I'm a helicopter pilot, and I came to the north to fly in the beautiful country up there. Access is a big problem for a lot of the projects, so helicopters are vital for these mine cleanups, the salt programs, prescribed fire, predator control. So helicopters are the lifeblood of a lot of the work that gets done out there, and it's also a big cost. And that cost is paid for out of the funds raised at these auctions, and we donate as well. Access is very, very limited out there.
Probably the biggest thing I didn't know when I started this role was really how big a role predators play on ungulates.
We've always funded predator control.
My name is Blair Miller. My family and myself run Stone and Folding Mountain Outfitters in Toad River. So we have worked with Northeast BC Wildlife over the years many times, mostly in relation to predator management, be it slinging in baits or things like that. We target wolves and wolverine because they're the primary predators of the game up in the areas that we operate in. So be it sheep, moose, goats, caribou, elk.
My name's Quentin Thompson, and we operate Gundahoo River Outfitters. Well, I think predator management, that term, I guess, is important. You know, as our business involves hunting, we're managing wildlife. I think it's very important to manage your entire ecosystem.
So the challenges for wildlife and wildlife management are really around, I would say, the politics. I think wildlife need 2 things really. They need habitat, so they need a place to live and forage, you know, and run, jump, and play, and all that kind of good stuff. And they need protection from predators, so it's really easy. Those 2 things are easy. The decisions around that, you know, they're tough, right? Because it's not politically correct to kill predators or kill wolves, and those, for some of the people that live where I do in Vancouver, a lot of people get all wound up about that, and you know, and that's the tough part. Right? The politicians don't like being yelled at, and but at the end of the day, we're on this planet. I think that we need to have a responsible attitude for sustainable use and managing wildlife. We need to manage all wildlife. I see First Nations that have a unique position. I think they have a long-term view of wildlife management, and I think that they see the role for predators, and I think that they're really in tune with wildlife. And I think that as non-Indigenous folks, I think that we've maybe exploited the resources in British Columbia and other places more than we should have. And I think that if we can move away from the kind of bottom line and quarterly reports and that kind of stuff to the triple bottom line, which I feel a lot coming out of nations, I think that we'll be in a better place.
Probably a quarter of the kids I went to school with were First Nation, right? And their parents, for the most part, lived on the land, right? They were trappers or guides. I mean, with my parents, most of the guides were First Nation. That's who taught me to hunt and fish, with the exception of my parents. The sad part is what I've seen over the last 50 years is there's less interest by the young people to get back on the land, and a lot of the younger generation, they truly don't know what they're missing.
The salting project came about because a lot of sheep were getting killed by cars on the Alaska Highway. So it was put together with Tom Fulton, the Sheep Foundation, Northeast BC Wildlife.
Salting up where the predators can't get at the, say, the sheep, for instance, is a great thing, because when the sheep come down to the highways to get their salt, they're just like a deer. They'll just up and bounce out in front of the vehicle, and then that's the end.
What needs to happen, just like anything else, it needs to be maintained year on year, so that the sheep get more and more used to using those salt sources rather than the highway, and keep from sheep getting killed along the Alaska Highway.
My name is Robin Rutledge. I'm a director with the Wild Sheep Society of BC. We've worked collaboratively with Northeast BC Wildlife Fund on a number of projects in those last 6 years. The salting program along the Alaska Highway, as well as the Gataga River cleanup, and many other projects.
My name is Aaron Fredland, and I work for Bessa River Outfitters. Before a large population came to this area, there was a lot of wildfire, and with that wildfire came a lot of habitat. Since then, for protection of people and what we do, our ways of life, we've dampened wildfire. And in doing so, we've also allowed good habitat to shrink.
Craig Kisselback, Terminus Mountain Outfitters. Prescribed fire is important for us, for our horses, for the feed during the winter, and their survival all year, really.
Prescribed fire is important, just the reason why for is because it brings back the land, but also brings back the animals and hunting. Along with that, also, in order to prevent a wildfire, is to create your own fire. What they can call controlled burn, but the proper word to call it is prescribed burn.
Without winter habitat, we have no wildlife, and that's a hard one. When I look around, you ask me about what it was like when I was a kid, and I look back at old pictures of south-facing slopes that used to be, let's just say, 75% open. Now they're 75% choked off with aspen and alder and all that green vegetation, and so then those hills are no longer windswept in the wintertime, and it has a negative impact on our wildlife and trying to sustain population. Our burning program kind of got dampened down, and we weren't burning much, and then a young lady named Sonia came to Fort Nelson and in my view pretty much got our burning going, and if it wasn't for her, we probably wouldn't be the benefactor of the great habitat that she created.
I believe that the Northeast BC Wildlife Fund is a true leader in prescribed fire, not only in Northeast BC or British Columbia, but in Canada and North America. Northeast BC Wildlife Fund purchases helicopter time, fuel, and the resources required to conduct safe and efficient prescribed fires. Northeast BC Wildlife Fund has been involved in prescribed fire for almost 4 decades, with many of our members having done prescribed fire their entire life, possibly second and third generation. I'd like to acknowledge the efforts by Northeast BC Wildlife Fund and by the range tenure holders, including guide outfitters, cattlemen, and Indigenous communities who have worked solidly with me and with our team to ensure that prescribed fire continues throughout Northeast BC.
We used to burn hundreds of thousands of hectares in the spring. Now it seems if you get a 50-hectare burn, they think they're doing something. And the land is so vast up there, that's the biggest thing. Misnomer, I think most people have no idea how much land is there and how vast it is. You can hop in a helicopter and fly for 5 hours and you fly over one highway and to the west. So there's just so much land out there, and it's changed a lot in 20 years. And it's sad to see actually some of the work that we had done in the past to where it is now. I'd really like to see that come back in a maintenance program.
We were kind of the driving factor of getting the Musqueam-Kachika barrel cleanup fund going. That cleanup, I think we took 600 and some barrels out of the mountains and a lot of other garbage. And so that was real successful.
So it was a collaborative of a lot of different outfits that to get in and clean up messes that were left behind from mining projects. And some of these are back into the 60s, 70s, cleaned up a lot of sites for sure.
We did a lot of river cleanup, like all the old camps along the Musqueam River and the Tishodi rivers. We've helped fund that, helped fund several projects with the Fort Nelson Rod and Gun Club.
The Northeast BC Wildlife Fund is very instrumental in being the voice for northeastern BC.
We have an organization that you can count on to get help, try to get things done for the wildlife and habitat out there. Like, you have to have some kind of a group that does that, and that's why I support them, because that's exactly what they do.
Well, the banquet fundraisers is where we've made the money to be able to do projects.
I highly encourage everybody to donate to Northeast BC Wildlife Fund for all the good that we do for the land, for wildlife, for the current generation and the next 7 generations. 85%
of all the money that's brought in by the Northeastern BC Wildlife Fund goes to projects on the land, and we have an overhead of about 10 to 15%. The money actually gets out there doing something, not political gain or anything else. It's on the land. That really was driven by the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation experience, where we were sending 6 figures of donated money to them, and when we asked for money back, we were lucky to get $2,500.
Well, it's very important to do the prescribed burning and the salting and all the stuff they do for the wildlife. If it wasn't being done, we wouldn't have anything to do, and our grandkids would definitely have nothing to do.
Well, if we want to enjoy wildlife into the future, we best look after the habitat. With no habitat, we have no wildlife. I mean, British Columbia in Canada has a pretty harsh winter environment. And if animals aren't 100% healthy when they go into winter, they don't survive.
For people that are there, donating to the Northeast BC Wildlife Fund is a good place to put your dollars. I think you'll get good value back for what's there, and you definitely get good value back from the people that are the main string of people in that organization. So let's make it the best fundraiser ever.
One day it'll be the Banff Jasper without the road. It'll be the place that people will want to go so that they can see what natural really is.